Hey Leo, so you can feel it, can't you? That feeling that 2026 is going to be your year, the year you conquer it all, the year you finally achieve everything you've been working so hard for. But if you're honest, there's also this quiet pressure building up, right? Well, today we're going to look at that exact feeling, but from a really ancient perspective, to figure out what's really going on inside.
So let me just ask you this, straight up. As you're thinking about the year ahead, Leo, are you running a race? Or, and really think about this, are you just running because you're absolutely terrified of what might happen if you stood still for even a second? Look, your ambition is one of your greatest gifts. It's a huge part of what makes you you. But that same drive can also lead to this deep sense of exhaustion, maybe even loneliness. It's that feeling that you constantly have to be on, that you have to perform just to keep everyone around. If that pressure feels familiar, I want you to know something. There is a 2,000-year-old story from Eastern philosophy that explains exactly why this happens. And even better, it shows us how to find some real, genuine peace before you completely burn out. So let's get into it. We're going to start with this really short but incredibly powerful story. It's a bit of a cautionary tale, but trust me, it holds the key to everything we're talking about. So it starts with this man who is deeply, deeply afraid of two things: his own shadow and the sound of his own footsteps. He saw them as these monsters that were constantly chasing him. So he came up with what seemed like a totally logical solution, right? He would just run away from them. He figured if he could just be fast enough, he could finally leave them behind for good. But here's the catch. The faster he ran, the louder his footsteps became. And no matter how hard he sprinted, how fast he pushed himself, his shadow was always right there with him, just effortlessly keeping up. His conclusion wasn't that his plan was wrong. Oh no, he thought to himself, I'm just not running fast enough. I have to try harder. I have to do more. And so he ran, and he ran, and he ran, until he completely collapsed from exhaustion and died. And the real tragedy of the story is that he was so focused on running, so focused on doing more, that he never saw the incredibly simple solution that was right there the whole time. He never realized that all he had to do to make his shadow disappear was to just step into the shade. So, what on earth does this ancient story have to do with you, Leo, in 2026? Oh, it has everything to do with you. Let's decode what these symbols actually mean for your life. The man in the story was trying to solve an internal problem, his fear, with an external action, running. And this is something we all do. We chase that promotion hoping it'll fix our insecurity. We throw the perfect party to get that feeling of validation. We try to outrun our inner shadows with outer achievement. For you, Leo, the shadow is that constant need for external validation. It's that little voice inside that says you have to perform, you have to be the brightest, the funniest, the most generous person in the room just to be worthy of love and respect. And the footsteps? That's the sound of you doing more. It's that relentless pace you set for yourself. It's the belief that if you just work a little harder, achieve one more thing, run a little faster, you can finally outrun that feeling of not being enough. But just like the man in the story, you can't outrun it. The solution isn't to run faster. The solution is something else entirely, something so much more powerful. It's about finding the shade. So what is the shade? Well, in the story, it was just a tree, a place to rest. If the man had just stopped running and rested in the shade, his shadow would have vanished. For you, the shade is vulnerability. It's having the courage to stop performing, to stop running, and to just let yourself be seen exactly as you are. And this is so important. I really want you to hear this. Stepping into the shade is not failure. It is not giving up. The shade is about having the strength to be vulnerable. It's realizing your worth has absolutely nothing to do with your performance. So what does this actually look like in 2026? It's in the small things, really. It's letting your partner see you when you're just plain exhausted instead of trying to hide it. It's letting your friends hang out with you when you don't have the energy to be on stage. It's admitting, you know what, I'm not sure what the answer is. It's the simple but radical act of just sitting still and being. Because when you do that, when you finally give yourself permission to stop, something amazing happens. The frantic sound of the footsteps, it stops. That shadow of expectation just disappears. And in that quiet space, real, authentic connection finally has the room it needs to grow. So, as we bring this to a close, I want to leave you with one question, just one thing to carry with you into the year ahead. Ask yourself this, Leo. In 2026, are you running to win a race that truly, deeply matters to you? Or are you just running because you're afraid to stop? Step into the shade and let the world see you, truly see you, for who you really are. The choice this year is yours.